Hello, second grade Smarties, and welcome to Wit and Wisdom Module 2, the American West, Lesson 18. So we are still exploring the legend of the Blue Bonnet, and today our pizza slice question is, what does a deeper exploration of how characters respond to major events reveal in the legend of the Blue Bonnet? So we are going to be looking at how the characters in the legend of the Blue Bonnet respond to the problems, the response to the problems, and the resolution in our story. So in our last lesson, we learned that the people that this story is about the Comanche Tribe. The Comanche Tribe was a tribe of Native Americans, and we are going to be watching a short video about the Comanche Tribe. And as we are watching the video, I want you to think, what were some important parts of life in this tribe?
The Comanche Indian tribe roamed the plains of Texas. They were masters of battle and horsemanship and were feared by many other Indian tribes and settlers. They were skilled hunters and lived off of the bison they hunted. Historians say the Comanches came from the north. They roamed the land east of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, but eventually followed the bison south to Texas. From the time the Comanche Indians were children, they were trained for battle and survival. The boys were taught to fight on horseback and hunt for bison, and the girls were taught how to use every part of a bison for food and clothing. The Comanche Indians did not like people who tried to take over their land. The Spanish went into many battles with the Comanche, and the Comanche prevailed. The French owned the land they were on, but the Comanche didn't let the French tell them what to do. In the 1800s, settlers from England began moving in on the Comanche territory. They built homes on their hunting lands, and it made the Comanche very angry. They would raid the settlers' homes to send them a message that they weren't welcome. They would kill the men and women. The women that weren't killed often became slaves, and they would capture the children and raise them as Comanche. Eventually, diseases like smallpox and cholera spread from the English settlers and killed many Comanche who had never dealt with disease. White bison hunters began taking over the hunting lands, and there was nothing left for the Comanche. Eventually, the Comanche moved on to Indian reservations set up by the United States government.
All right, so after watching that short video about the Comanche tribe, what are some things that you learned about how they lived? Tell me in the puzzle. So we learned that the Comanche tribe, they hunted bison. So they moved from Colorado to Texas, and they lived by hunting and relying on bison or buffalo to survive. We also learned that they were very protective of their land. They were very protective of where they lived, and they did not allow people to come into their land. But over time, as we learn about early American settlers, Indian wars started. There were diseases, there were sicknesses that forced the Comanche tribe to move into reservations. And we have talked about how reservations are places set aside by the United States government for Native American tribes to live in. So after learning a little bit more about the history of the Comanche tribe, about how they lived, I want you to think back to when we have read this story several times now, and we've talked about the characters, she who is alone, the Comanche people, the shaman. We've talked about the setting is in Texas. We've talked about how the problem is that the Great Spirits were angry with the Comanche tribe for being selfish. And because they were selfish, the Great Spirits were not sending rain for food to grow. And so people were starving, they couldn't grow food. And so the Comanche tribe had to respond to that problem by making a sacrifice. But remember in the story, there was a warrior that didn't want to give up his bow. There was a woman who didn't want to give up her blanket. But who did make a sacrifice in the story? Who was the person or child who made a sacrifice to the great spirits? Tell me in the puzzle. She who is alone. She made the sacrifice of her most valued possession, which was her warrior doll. And because she made that sacrifice, the great spirits forgave the Comanche people and brought warm rains and the beautiful blue bonnet flowers. So that is the legend of the blue bonnet. We've talked about how that is a made up story that talks about the history of that nation. So, as we are thinking about all of the elements of that story, the characters, the setting, the problem, and the resolution, we can think of text specific words that help us understand those elements. So, over here to the side, I have some words that belong in these categories. So, we have some words that would belong in characters, setting, problem, and resolution. Looking at our first word, Texas, where would Texas go in our chart? Would it go under characters, setting, problem, or resolution? Where would the word Texas go? Tell me in the puzzle. It would go under setting. What about warrior? Did we learn about a warrior character? No, think about the warrior doll. Was the warrior doll part of the setting, the problem, or the resolution? It was part of the resolution, right? She who is alone sacrificed her warrior doll to help her people. What about the word selfish? Where would the word selfish go? Would it go under characters, setting, problem, or resolution? Tell me in the puzzle. It would go under selfish. The Comanche people were selfish, and that was a problem because it made the great spirits angry. What about the word she who is alone? Where would that key word go? It would go under characters because she who is alone was the main character in the story. What about the word forgiveness? Would that word go under characters, setting, problem, or resolution? Tell me in the puzzle. It would go under resolution. Who forgave the Comanche people? The great spirits. So, all of these words are topic specific words, are key words that help us understand our characters, our setting, our problem, and resolution. So, this is the chart. And so our characters that were in this list of words were shaman and she who is alone. Texas was the setting. The problem in the story was the famine, the drought, and selfish. The people were selfish. So there was a famine and a drought because the great spirits did not send rain. And the resolution was sacrifice, valued possession, the warrior doll. The warrior doll was made of buckskin. She who is alone gave the offering. The great spirits forgave the people. The land was restored, and it was miraculous because the great spirits responded to she who is alone. So, how do we know that these words belong in each category? How did we figure out where these words went? What did we do to put these words in these categories? I asked you in the last slide to think of where these words go. How did you know those words belonged in each category? Tell me in the puzzle. So we use our knowledge of these words to think of how they relate to the story. She who is alone and shaman, those were names of characters in the story. Texas is a place. A setting is a place in the story. So Texas would belong with setting. Famine, drought, and selfish, those are all problems. Those are all things that can cause harm to people. So those would be problems. And all of these words talk about responses to a problem and good outcomes of those problems. So those were resolutions. So, what we are going to do right now is we are going to listen to Miss Mason read something called a reader's theater. Now, if we were in the classroom together or if we were on a Google Meet together, you guys would be given a part. So, I might give you the part of the dancer or she who is alone or the narrator. The narrator is a person who tells the story and gives background information. She who is alone, and the dancers are the characters in the reader's theater. So this is called a script. The people whose turn it is to talk, that will be over here. So if you were a dancer, you would say this part. The narrator would say the part that is next to the word narrator. So what I'm going to do is I am going to read this reader's theater, and then we are going to answer the questions. All right, so get your bodies in a place where you are listening closely, and I will get started. Dancers, our land is dying. Our people are dying too. We do not know what we have done to anger the great spirits. Great spirits, tell us what we must do so you will send the rain that will bring back life. Narrator. For 3 days, the dancers danced to the sound of the drums. For 3 days, the people called Comanche watched and waited. And even though the hard winter was over, no healing rains came. Among the few children left was a small girl named She Who Is Alone. She sat by herself watching the dancers. She Who Is Alone. Here is my doll made from buckskin, a warrior doll. I painted the eyes, nose, and mouth on with the juice of berries. Here on its head are brilliant blue feathers from the bird who cries J, J, J. My mother made the doll, and my father brought the blue feathers. I loved the doll very much. Narrator. And as the people sang and danced their thanks to the great spirits, a warm rain began to fall, and the land began to live again. Dancers. Speaking to She Who Is Alone. We named you She Who Is Alone, but now you will be known by another name, one who dearly loved her people. Narrator. In every spring, the great spirits remember the sacrifice of a little girl. They fill the hills and valleys of the land, now called Texas, with the beautiful blue flowers. All right, so that was a reader's theater. I want you to think, did that reader's theater tell the entire story of the legend of the Blue Bonnet? No, it told us certain parts from the story. So at the beginning of the story, what were the dancers doing? What were the dancers doing at the beginning of the story? Tell me in the puzzle. It said that the dancers danced to the sound of the drums. The Comanche watched and waited, and even though the hard winter was over, no healing rains came. So they watched and waited. They danced because they were waiting for what? They were waiting for rain. But why did the great spirits not send rain? Why did the great spirits not send rain? Tell me in the puzzle. They didn't send rain because the Comanche people were selfish. They did not give, they only took from the great spirits. So at the beginning, we learn about how the dancers were dancing, they were waiting for rain, but the shaman later told them they had to make a sacrifice. And so that is when we learn about She Who Is Alone. She Who Is Alone is the girl that made the sacrifice to help her people. What did She Who Is Alone sacrifice in the story? Tell me in the puzzle. She sacrificed her warrior doll. Why did she sacrifice her warrior doll? Tell me in the puzzle. She sacrificed her warrior doll to help her people because she had to sacrifice something that was important to her so that the rains would come. So, after listening to this, what do you think her people, the Comanche people, learned from She Who Is Alone? What did the tribe learn from the girl? What do you think they learned from She Who Is Alone? Tell me in the puzzle. I think they learn that a small child can make great sacrifices to help someone in need. We talked about the word sacrifice means to give up something important. So a small child can give up something important to help her people. So the Comanche learned that a small child can make great sacrifices. All right, so we have been exploring the legend of the Blue Bonnet. We've been talking about the lessons that we can learn from the story. We've been talking about sacrifice, things that are valuable to us, what it means to help someone with those sacrifices. So, in a couple of days, we will be doing a writing activity about what is the lesson that we can learn from the legend of the Blue Bonnet. But we are also adding something to our informative paragraph. We are adding an introduction. So, an introduction is a sentence that gives us background information about the topic. So, the topic statement tells us what the reader is going to learn about, but the introduction goes before the topic statement. So, I have some boxes right here with some sentences, and these boxes have different colors. These are sentences that go in an informational paragraph. We are going to figure out how to put these sentences in order. So I want you to listen to the sentences and listen for the introduction, the topic statement, the details, and the conclusion. All right. So I'm going to read them in the order that we see them, and then together we are going to put it in the correct order. All right, here we go. They had to walk 15 miles a day. Sometimes they fell over because they were tired. Life was hard on the Oregon Trail. The camp had to be watched at nighttime. Men had to take turns keeping watch. Olivia and her family faced many challenges on their journey. Being a pioneer was hard, but they were excited to find a new home. All right, so those are the sentences that make up an informational paragraph. What were all those sentences about? They were all about the Oregon Trail, and it talked about Olivia's family on the Oregon Trail. So, what we are going to do is we are going to move these sentences in the correct order. So, starting with the first sentence, it said they had to walk 15 miles a day. Sometimes they fell over because they were tired. Is this the introduction, the topic statement, or a detail? What do you think? They had to walk 15 miles a day. Sometimes they fell over because they were tired. Where does this go? This is a detail sentence. So does it go at the beginning, the middle, or the end? It goes in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I am going to move this towards the middle. And look at where I am moving it to. I am moving it by the other blue sentence because, hint, 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 it is another detail. The camp had to be watched at nighttime. Men had to take turns keeping watch. So those are our details. That gives us information about our topic statement. Which color box has our topic statement? Which box tells us about what our details give us information about? Life was hard on the Oregon Trail. Does that talk about Olivia and her family? No, it talks about the Oregon Trail. We need a sentence as our topic statement that talks about Olivia and her family in the journey. Life was hard on the Oregon Trail. This gives us background information about our topic. So the purple sentence is our introduction. Olivia and her family faced many challenges on their journey. Where should this sentence go? This green box, where should it go? Is it the topic statement or the conclusion? The green sentence, is it the topic statement or the conclusion? Tell me in the puzzle. It's the topic statement. It gives me information about the Oregon Trail and about what our story, what our informational paragraph is about. So I am going to move our details down. And I'm going to move our topic statement right here. And then our yellow sentence would be our conclusion. It restates what we said in our topic statement. So let's read this all together. Life was hard on the Oregon Trail. Olivia and her family faced many challenges on their journey. They had to walk 15 miles a day. Sometimes they fell over because they were tired. The camp had to be watched at nighttime. Men had to take turns keeping watch. Being a pioneer was hard, but they were excited to find a new home. So, all of these sentences, putting them ordered, they teach us about our topic. What was the topic about in our informational paragraph? Tell me in the puzzle. It was all about life on the Oregon Trail. Our introduction sentence gives us background information about our topic. Life was hard on the Oregon Trail. Olivia and her family faced many challenges on their journey. Their journey was on the Oregon Trail. So our introduction is important because it gives us background information about our topic statement. So in a couple days, we will be writing an informational paragraph and you will be adding an introduction before your topic statement. All right, and we are going to wrap up our lesson with a deep dive. And our deep dive today, once it gets there, we are going to be talking about the words valued, possession, and forgiveness. So we have been exploring different ways to learn the meanings of different words. We look at the word, we look for that base word, suffixes, prefixes. We look at the words around the vocabulary word. We look at the illustrations to see if those can help us understand what an unknown word means. So the first word we are going to explore is possession. So I am going to read a section from this book, and we are going to be talking about the base word of possession. So listen very closely. Oh, great spirits, here is my warrior doll. It is the only thing I have from my family who died in the famine. It is my most valued possession. Please accept it. Possession is our vocabulary word. Possession is the word possess and the suffix possession. Possession. So possess means to own something. So if possess means to own something, what do you think it means that the doll is the girl's possession? What does that mean about the doll? How does the doll relate to the girl? It means that she owns the doll. So, possession is something that a person owns. So, a valued possession is something that a person owns. It is the girl's. So, we use the base word to help us figure out what the word possession means. Let's look at the word valued. Oh, great spirits, here is my warrior doll. It is the only thing I have from my family who died in the famine. It is my most valued possession. Please accept it. Valued. Can you think of another word that has value in it? So, valuable, value, and valued all have the same base word, value. So, something that is valuable, that means it is what? If something is very valuable, what does that mean? Tell me in the puzzle. If something is valuable, that means it is very special to you. So think about the warrior doll. If it is her most valued possession, that means it is her most special possession. It means a lot to her. So valued means worth a lot, important, or precious. And our last word is forgiveness. There was no doubt about it. The flowers were a sign of forgiveness. What is the base word in the word forgiveness? If we take away the suffix ness, our base word is forgive. So how we are going to wrap up this ed puzzle, this video, is I want you to tell me what you think the word forgiveness means. So in the puzzle, you are going to use this sentence starter to tell me what you think the word forgiveness means. I think forgiveness means blank because blank. I want you to tell me what you think the word means and why you think it means that. All right, Smarties, that is it for lesson 18 with the legend of the blue bonnet. As always, I want you to keep that growth mindset. Good learners do hard things, and I will see you guys very soon with another lesson. Happy learning, Smarties.